The winds of change were not whispers of hope. They were the howls of a coming storm. As settlers pushed westward and the U.S. military marched across the plains, the great Native American tribes stood at a crossroads. Would they survive? Would their culture, their sacred lands endure? The Great Plains, once a vast, untamed wilderness, were no longer untouched. The U.S. Army's relentless expansion, fueled by the promise of manifest destiny, was now a palpable threat to Native American ways of life. The time of peaceful coexistence was ending, and the warriors would have to rise to defend everything they held sacred. At the heart of this fierce resistance stood the greatest Native American warriors, those who would battle not just with strength, but with strategy, spiritual power, and an unyielding will to protect their land, families, and culture. These warriors knew the stakes were life and death, not just for themselves, but for their entire way of life. This is where our story begins, with a warrior born in the Sioux Nation, a leader who would rise to become one of the greatest symbols of defiance, the indomitable Crazy Horse. What does it take to defeat an army when all you have is your spirit? Crazy Horse showed the world just how powerful a determined heart can be. Crazy Horse was not born a leader. He was born a warrior, a son of the Lakota Sioux, whose life was forged in the fires of battle and loss. His people were familiar with the cruelty of the U.S. military's encroachment, but Crazy Horse's journey to becoming a legendary warrior was not just about fighting. It was about preserving the very essence of his people's spirit. From a young age, Crazy Horse was marked by an unshakable resolve. He wasn't a man of many words, but his actions spoke volumes. His rise to leadership came when the U.S. military's intrusion reached a breaking point, when his people were on the edge of losing not only their land, but their identity. Crazy Horse's greatest victory came during the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876. There, he led the Sioux and Cheyenne warriors in a stunning defeat of General George Custer's 7th Cavalry. Against overwhelming odds, Crazy Horse's tactical brilliance and fearless leadership marked the battle as one of the most significant Native American victories in history. But this was not just a battle of weapons. It was a battle for survival, for culture, and for the right to remain free. When your people are hunted, your land taken, and your family murdered, what choice do you have but to fight? Geronimo chose to fight, and his name would become synonymous with resistance. Born into the Apache tribe, Geronimo's life was defined by violence and loss. After witnessing the brutal murder of his family at the hands of Mexican soldiers, Geronimo's vow to resist any force that sought to take his people's freedom became unbreakable. He would become one of the most feared warriors of his time, so much so that his name would strike terror into the hearts of U.S. soldiers. Geronimo's greatest years of resistance spanned over a decade. Using guerrilla tactics, he and his band of Apache warriors launched surprise raids against Mexican and U.S. forces alike. They became ghosts in the desert, vanishing as quickly as they appeared, leaving behind chaos in their wake. But as time wore on, the U.S. military's pursuit grew relentless. Geronimo's warriors were gradually worn down, their supplies dwindling. In 1886, after years of resistance, Geronimo was forced to surrender. Yet even in defeat, Geronimo became a symbol of the fierce, unbroken spirit of the Apache. In the heart of the Lakota Sioux camp, Sitting Bull's vision was more than prophecy. It was a promise to protect his people, no matter the cost. Sitting Bull was not just a warrior. He was a spiritual leader, a protector of his people's way of life. As the U.S. Army closed in on the Sioux, Sitting Bull's role as both a military leader and a spiritual guide became even more critical. He had a vision for his people, a vision that combined resistance with the strength of their culture and spirituality. Sitting Bull's most iconic moment came during the Battle of the Little Bighorn, where his guidance and Crazy Horse's leadership led to a historic defeat of General Custer. This victory was not only a blow to the U.S. military, but a testament to the power of Native American unity. Yet, this victory came at a cost, and Sitting Bull would soon face the tragic aftermath as the U.S. continued its relentless march toward breaking the Sioux people. Sitting Bull's spiritual connection with his people was key to their unity and survival. His leadership wasn't just about war, it was about preserving the soul of the Lakota Sioux. What if the native tribes united as one? Tecumseh believed this vision could save his people from the encroaching tide of the U.S. government. Tecumseh's dream was not born from the fires of one single battle, but from a vision of a united Native American front. Born to the Shawnee people, Tecumseh witnessed firsthand the slow and methodical destruction of native lands as the U.S. expanded westward. His solution was not to fight alone, but to unite. Traveling across the Midwest, Tecumseh worked tirelessly to forge alliances between tribes, from the Cherokee to the Miami. He saw the survival of his people as a collective fight, one where a fragmented resistance would never succeed against the might of the U.S. military. Tecumseh's efforts came to a head during the War of 1812, where he allied with the British in a bid to push back the U.S. forces. His leadership was a beacon of hope to Native Americans, but his death at the Battle of the Thames in 1813 marked the end of his vision of unity. Yet, his fight for a united front would influence future generations of Native leaders. Red Cloud knew the land of the Black Hills was sacred. To lose it would be to lose everything. He wasn't just fighting for territory, he was fighting for his people's identity. The Black Hills of South Dakota were the heart of the Lakota Sioux people. When the U.S. Army began to fortify their positions along the Bozeman Trail, Red Cloud knew the time had come to fight. Red Cloud, a brilliant strategist, knew that his people could not afford to lose the Black Hills, not just as land, but as the spiritual home of the Sioux. Red Cloud's war was a testament to his tactical genius. After a series of victories, Red Cloud forced the U.S. military to abandon its forts in the region, leading to the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, which temporarily secured the Black Hills for the Lakota. But even this victory would be short-lived, as the promise of the U.S. government would later be broken, and the Lakota would face another wave of invasion. Red Cloud's leadership was a turning point in Native American resistance, showing that even in the face of overwhelming military might, strategic brilliance could secure moments of victory for his people. When faced with impossible odds, Chief Joseph was forced to lead his people on a journey that would become one of the most tragic and heroic retreats in history. The Nez Perce were a peaceful tribe, but when the U.S. government ordered them to leave their land in Oregon, Chief Joseph was thrust into the role of leader. Initially seeking peaceful resolution, he had no choice but to lead his people on a dangerous journey toward Canada, hoping to escape the oppressive force of the U.S. military. The Nez Perce War of 1877 became a tragic saga of survival. Despite fierce resistance and tactical brilliance, Chief Joseph and his people were relentlessly pursued. After a 1,400-mile retreat and several battles, Chief Joseph surrendered, famously declaring, "I will fight no more forever." Born of two worlds, Quanah Parker became a leader who bridged the gap between the traditions of the past and the struggles of the future. Quanah Parker's story is one of adaptation and survival. Born to a Comanche chief and a captured white woman, his life straddled two cultures, one that would become extinct and the other that was rapidly expanding. This chapter explores how Quanah Parker rose to become the last chief of the Comanche, leading his people through both their final battles and their transition to reservation life. His leadership on the reservation was crucial in ensuring the survival of Comanche culture. He would later become an advocate for native rights, working to secure better conditions for his people while preserving their traditions. In 1832, the U.S. military came knocking at Black Hawk's door. He didn't just defend his land. He fought to protect his people's future, knowing this might be their last chance. Black Hawk, leader of the Sauk and Fox tribes, refused to leave the land that his people had lived on for centuries. When the U.S. government forced his people to cede their homeland in Illinois, Black Hawk led his warriors in one of the last stands of Native American resistance in the Midwest. Despite overwhelming odds, he and his band waged a guerrilla campaign that would become known as the Black Hawk War. The war was brutal, and though it ended in defeat for Black Hawk, his fight against U.S. forces became an iconic symbol of defiance. His capture and later public display were meant to humiliate him, but Black Hawk's spirit remained unbroken. His resistance was not just for his land, but for his people's dignity and future. When you're pushed to the brink of extinction, the only choice is to fight back. Geronimo's name became a legend, and for the U.S. military, a nightmare they could never forget. Geronimo's name struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. As a leader of the Apache, he became a symbol of unrelenting resistance. For years he evaded U.S. forces, launching surprise raids that terrorized both the Mexican and American forces. This chapter will explore his continuing fight, even after his surrender, and how his story has inspired generations of resistance fighters. Despite his eventual capture in 1886, Geronimo's legacy was far from over. He became a symbol of Native American defiance, his name synonymous with resistance, and his story one of unyielding perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. On the frozen plains of South Dakota, a massacre was about to take place, one that would mark the end of an era and solidify the tragedy of Native American history. In 1890, the U.S. Army massacred over 300 Lakota Sioux at Wounded Knee, marking the brutal end of the Indian resistance. The massacre, while officially considered the end of the Indian Wars, was a devastating blow to the Lakota people and the broader Native American resistance. This chapter delves into the events leading up to the massacre, the tensions surrounding the Ghost Dance movement, and the tragic loss of life at Wounded Knee. For Native Americans, it was a final betrayal, a reminder of the U.S. government's broken promises and its ruthless attempts to erase their culture and spirit. What if Native America united as one? Tecumseh's dream was more than just a vision. It was a blueprint for survival in a world determined to erase their existence. Tecumseh, born of the Shawnee tribe, was a visionary who believed that Native American tribes could stand stronger together than apart. His mission was clear: unite the tribes to resist U.S. expansion and fight back against the encroachment of settlers and soldiers. This chapter explores Tecumseh's efforts to form a confederacy of tribes, his leadership during the War of 1812, and his role in leading Native American forces alongside the British. Despite his death at the Battle of the Thames in 1813, Tecumseh's dream of unity echoed through history, continuing to inspire leaders long after his death. When the U.S. Army began fortifying the Bozeman Trail, Red Cloud saw it as the beginning of the end for his people. The Black Hills, sacred to the Lakota, would not be lost without a fight. Red Cloud, a revered chief of the Lakota Sioux, knew that the Bozeman Trail was more than just a pathway for settlers. It was a direct threat to the sacred land of the Sioux. In this chapter, we delve into Red Cloud's war, a conflict that forced the U.S. Army to abandon its forts along the Bozeman Trail. Red Cloud's military brilliance and fierce resolve led to the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, which temporarily secured the Black Hills for the Lakota people. But this victory was short-lived, as the U.S. government would break the treaty's promises. Red Cloud's legacy, however, lives on as a symbol of Native American resistance and diplomacy, demonstrating that the fight for land was not always won with weapons, but with strategy and unity. More than just a warrior, Sitting Bull was a visionary who believed the survival of his people depended on spiritual strength, not just military might. Sitting Bull's leadership was defined by his unwavering connection to his spiritual beliefs and his people. Unlike other leaders of his time, Sitting Bull knew that protecting his people's culture and spiritual practices was just as important as defending their land. This chapter focuses on Sitting Bull's role as a spiritual leader and warrior, and how his vision during the Battle of the Little Bighorn contributed to one of the greatest victories for Native Americans. His victory was not just in battle, it was in his ability to inspire a united front of warriors, all fighting for their sacred lands and their survival. After a 1,400-mile retreat, Chief Joseph's words would echo through history, "I will fight no more forever." But what brought him to the point of surrender? Chief Joseph, leader of the Nez Perce, was a man who sought peace, but when his people were forced to leave their ancestral lands, he had no choice but to fight. His journey, as he led his people toward Canada in an attempt to escape U.S. forces, would become one of the most tragic and heroic retreats in history. Despite his brilliant tactics, Chief Joseph was eventually cornered by U.S. forces. His surrender marked the end of the Nez Perce War and left a profound impact on Native American resistance. His famous words, "I will fight no more forever," would come to symbolize both the heartbreak and the unbroken spirit of the Nez Perce people. Born of two worlds, Quanah Parker was uniquely positioned to navigate the fragile line between tradition and survival in a rapidly changing world. Quanah Parker, the son of a Comanche chief and a white captive, became one of the most influential leaders of his people. As a young man, he fought alongside his tribe in the final battles of Comanche resistance against the U.S. military. But after their surrender, he had to adapt quickly, guiding his people through the transition to reservation life. This chapter explores how Quanah Parker worked to preserve Comanche culture while adapting to the new world. His leadership on the reservation helped secure better living conditions for his people, and he became a key figure in advocating for Native American rights and sovereignty. His ability to bridge two worlds became a model for future Native American leaders. The Comanche were feared across the plains, but as the last holdouts surrendered, the warrior spirit of the Comanche would find new ways to survive. The Comanche were known as some of the fiercest and most skilled warriors in North America. But by the late 1800s, the era of the Plains warriors was coming to an end. In this chapter, we explore the decline of the Comanche resistance, the forced relocation of their people, and the final moments of their military dominance. The surrender of Quanah Parker and other Comanche leaders signified the end of an era, but the spirit of the Comanche warrior was far from extinguished. The Comanche people would carry their heritage into the future, adapting while maintaining the heart of their warrior culture. Though the battles were over, the fight for justice was just beginning. Native Americans were determined to reclaim their rights, their dignity, and their land. After the fall of the major resistance leaders, the fight didn't end, it evolved. This chapter delves into the long journey for Native American rights in the 20th century, focusing on legal battles, political movements, and the activism that would define a new era of Native American resistance. Leaders like Dennis Banks and Russell Means of the American Indian Movement, AIM, fought to bring awareness to the ongoing injustices faced by Native communities, calling for civil rights, land reclamation, and a renewed commitment to preserving Native cultures. The fight for justice was no longer on the battlefield. It was in the courts, the streets, and the halls of Congress. The battles may have ended on the battlefield, but the fight for Native sovereignty was just beginning. After centuries of battle, the Native American tribes turned their fight towards sovereignty, the right to govern themselves and control their own resources. This chapter explores the emergence of Native American activism in the 20th century, with leaders like Wilma Mankiller, the first woman to serve as the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation, and Vine Deloria Jr., a scholar and activist, advocating for a return to self-governance. The struggles for recognition and sovereignty became the central issue for Native tribes, whose lands had been stripped away and whose rights were often trampled by federal policies. But as Native American nations fought for political power, they would find that the struggle for justice was not over. It was evolving. The ghosts of Wounded Knee would never rest, but in their silence, they left behind a call to action, a cry for justice that would echo through generations. The Wounded Knee Massacre of 1890 was not just a tragic loss of life, it was a defining moment in Native American history. Over 300 Lakota Sioux men, women, and children were killed by U.S. soldiers, marking the end of the Indian resistance on the Great Plains. This chapter delves into the aftermath of Wounded Knee, the trauma it caused, and how it ignited new movements for Native American rights. The survivors of Wounded Knee carried the memory of that massacre forward, channeling their pain into a new wave of activism. The fight for reparations, justice, and cultural survival was about to take on a new, more organized form in the 1960s and 1970s, with movements like the American Indian Movement, AIM, taking center stage. As the civil rights movement surged across the United States, Native Americans too began to demand their rights. The American Indian Movement became the voice of a new generation of resistance. The 1960s and 1970s saw a massive shift in Native American activism. This chapter tells the story of the American Indian Movement, AIM, founded in 1968, which quickly became the leading voice for Native American rights. The movement was a direct response to systemic racism, broken treaties, and the erasure of Native cultures. AIM organized protests, including the famous occupation of Alcatraz Island, and led key actions such as the Wounded Knee occupation of 1973. These actions were not only a call for political rights, but also a rallying cry to protect sacred lands, cultures, and identities. The new generation of warriors was using their voices, not just weapons, to demand justice. Land is life. It's more than just soil, it's a connection to ancestors, a bond with the earth. And it was land that the U.S. government sought to strip away, piece by piece. Throughout history, Native American tribes fought to preserve their sacred land. From the Black Hills of South Dakota to the waters of the Missouri River, the land was not just property, it was integral to Native identity, spirituality, and culture. This chapter explores the modern battles over land, as tribes across the country worked to reclaim their stolen territories. The Cobell versus Salazar case in 2009, which resulted in a $3.4 billion settlement, and other legal victories, represented the growing power of Native nations to challenge the U.S. government and secure land reparations. But even today, the fight for land continues, as tribes seek to protect their remaining territories from exploitation and destruction. Art has always been a weapon in the fight for survival. Through paintings, songs, dances, and stories, Native Americans have preserved their culture for centuries. The struggle for cultural survival has always been a part of Native American resistance. In this chapter, we explore how Native American artists, painters, musicians, filmmakers, and writers have played a critical role in reclaiming and redefining Native identity. Artists like John Quick-to-See Smith and Sherman Alexie use their craft to challenge stereotypes, preserve Native history, and amplify Native voices. This chapter highlights how the arts have become a vital part of modern Native activism, helping to keep cultural traditions alive while pushing back against centuries of colonialism and misrepresentation. From World War II to Vietnam, Native Americans have served in every major conflict. They've fought for the U.S. while never fully being recognized as equal citizens. Native Americans have served in the U.S. military at higher rates per capita than any other ethnic group in the country. This chapter honors the legacy of Native American veterans, focusing on the code talkers of World War II, who used their native languages to encode messages for the U.S. military and their post-war struggles for recognition. The contributions of Native American soldiers went largely unacknowledged for years, but today their sacrifices are being recognized and their stories are finally being told. This chapter dives into how Native Americans have continued to serve in the U.S. military and how their service has become a symbol of their resilience and patriotism. Water is life. And when the Dakota Access Pipeline threatened the Standing Rock Sioux tribe's sacred land, it became more than just a protest. It became a global movement. In 2016, the Standing Rock protests brought the issue of water rights and environmental justice into the global spotlight. Native Americans from all over the country, along with environmental activists, came together to fight the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. This chapter examines the importance of water to Native American communities, both culturally and spiritually, and the continuing struggle to protect natural resources from exploitation. The Standing Rock protests weren't just about protecting land, they were about defending the earth itself, a fight that continues to inspire indigenous activists and environmentalists worldwide. Language is the heartbeat of a culture. When a language dies, so does part of the culture it represents. But Native Americans are fighting to keep their languages alive. One of the most significant aspects of Native American culture is language. For centuries, Native languages were suppressed, outlawed, and forgotten. But today, there is a powerful movement to revitalize these languages and ensure they're passed on to future generations. This chapter explores the work being done to teach and preserve Native American languages, from language immersion schools to digital programs. It also looks at the resurgence of Native media and storytelling, which play a critical role in keeping these languages alive. The revitalization of language is central to the revival of Native culture and identity. The fight for Native rights, sovereignty, and cultural survival isn't over, it's evolving. The next generation of warriors are here, ready to lead. As Native Americans move into the 21st century, the new generation is taking up the mantle of leadership. From youth-led movements to Native American activists running for political office, the next generation of warriors is redefining what it means to fight for their people. This chapter introduces the rising leaders of today. Figures like Deb Haaland, the first Native American woman elected to Congress, and Sharice Davids, the first openly gay Native American woman in Congress. Their leadership marks a new chapter in Native American resistance, where legal battles, social media, and grassroots movements are at the forefront. The warrior spirit isn't defined by the past, it's shaped by the future. And the future of Native America is one of resilience, pride, and power. Native American identity is stronger than ever today. This chapter celebrates the survival and thriving of Native American culture and people, highlighting the work of contemporary leaders and activists who are reclaiming their voice and power. From arts and culture to political influence, Native Americans are shaping the world in new and powerful ways. The legacy of the great warriors is alive in the hearts of Native Americans who are creating a future where their cultures, traditions, and sovereignty are not just preserved, they're celebrated. In a world that tried to erase their history, Native Americans are now fighting to bring their stories, their knowledge, and their voices back into the light. For centuries, Native American children were sent to boarding schools where they were stripped of their languages, traditions, and cultural identities. But the fight for Native American education has evolved from one of survival to one of empowerment. This chapter highlights the rise of tribal colleges, Native American studies programs, and the push for better educational opportunities that reflect and honor Native cultures. As Native American communities continue to build their own educational systems, the future generations are being taught not only the history of their people, but also how to fight for their cultural and political sovereignty. Every warrior who fell, whether on the battlefield or in the fight for justice, has left a mark on the soul of Native America. Their stories are remembered, their sacrifices honored. This chapter is a tribute to the warriors who gave their lives fighting for their people's survival. From the legendary warriors like Crazy Horse and Geronimo to the leaders of the American Indian Movement, AIM, their sacrifices paved the way for the modern Native American rights movement. It's not just the battles they fought, it's the impact their legacies have had on today's generation of Native American activists, artists, and leaders. The stories of these warriors continue to inspire and fuel the ongoing fight for justice and cultural preservation. The battlefield has shifted from the plains to the courts. Native American leaders are now fighting for justice, sovereignty, and land through legal means. As the U.S. government encroached on native lands, tribes turned to the legal system to seek justice. This chapter explores some of the most pivotal legal battles, including Cobell versus Salazar, where Native Americans won a landmark $3.4 billion settlement for the mismanagement of trust funds, and the ongoing fight for land and water rights. The rise of tribal sovereignty and land restoration cases has become the new front in the fight for Native American rights, showing that the legal system is an essential weapon in the fight to reclaim what was lost. What began as a stand for water became a stand for justice, sovereignty, and the protection of sacred lands. Standing Rock wasn't just a protest, it was a movement. In 2016, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe became the epicenter of a global movement for Native American rights and environmental justice. This chapter delves into the Dakota Access Pipeline protests and the incredible resistance led by the Standing Rock Sioux, as well as how the world rallied behind them. The movement united tribes, environmentalists, and activists worldwide in a shared commitment to protect sacred land and water resources. The battle for Standing Rock sparked a resurgence of indigenous activism, and its impact continues to reverberate across the globe. Ceremony has always been at the heart of Native American identity. In the face of trauma, it is through ceremony that healing begins. This chapter focuses on how Native American tribes are using ceremonial practices, such as the Sweat Lodge ceremony, the Sun Dance, and the Powwow, to heal from the historical trauma of colonization, forced relocation, and broken treaties. As many Native American tribes struggled with the loss of cultural practices, these ceremonies have become central to cultural survival and revitalization. Through these sacred practices, Native American communities reconnect with their ancestors, heal emotional wounds, and reaffirm their commitment to the earth and its teachings. This resurgence of spirituality has become an important form of resistance, reclaiming power over their identity and legacy. When a language dies, so does a piece of the culture. But Native Americans are fighting to bring their languages back, one word at a time. The loss of Native American languages was one of the most profound impacts of colonization. This chapter explores how Native communities are working to revive their languages through language immersion programs, tribal schools, and community efforts. Leaders like Lori Arviso Alvord and Wilma Mankiller have been instrumental in making language preservation a priority. The fight to revitalize Native languages is more than just about words. It's about reclaiming culture, passing down ancestral knowledge, and fostering pride in a rich, unique heritage that refuses to be silenced. The strength of Native American women has always been at the core of their people's survival. From the front lines of resistance to the halls of Congress, they continue to lead the way. Historically, Native American women have been central to both the spiritual and political leadership of their tribes. This chapter celebrates the incredible contributions of Native American women, from warriors like Buffalo Calf Road Woman to political leaders like Wilma Mankiller and Deb Haaland. Today, Native women are taking on leadership roles in their communities, advocating for environmental justice, cultural preservation, and economic empowerment. The chapter highlights their ongoing role as warriors for the future of their people, showing that leadership comes in many forms. The warriors of tomorrow are already here, taking up the fight for their people, their culture, and their rights. Native American youth are stepping up in unprecedented ways, leading movements for environmental justice, cultural survival, and social change. This chapter focuses on the powerful activism of young Native leaders like Autumn Peltier, a water protector from the Anishinaabe Nation, and the youth-led protests in Standing Rock. Their energy, creativity, and determination are leading a new generation of Native American activists who are reshaping the future. The next wave of Native warriors is not on horseback. They are on social media, in the courtroom, and in the streets, fighting for justice on their own terms. The earth is sacred. To protect the land is to protect the people. For Native Americans, environmental justice is a battle for survival. This chapter delves into the role Native Americans are playing in the fight for environmental justice. From the Keystone XL pipeline to climate change, Native American communities are at the forefront of efforts to protect the earth. Leaders like Winona LaDuke and Candy Mossett are pushing for sustainable practices and defending sacred lands from exploitation. This chapter explores how Native American tribes are using their unique cultural knowledge of the land to lead efforts in preserving ecosystems and combating climate change. Native American veterans have fought in every war this country has waged. Their service is as noble as their resistance. Native Americans have served in every major U.S. military conflict, from World War I to Vietnam. This chapter pays tribute to their bravery and sacrifices, as well as the challenges they face in being recognized for their service. Figures like the code talkers of World War II, who used their native languages to protect U.S. military communications, are celebrated for their extraordinary contributions. The chapter also touches on the struggles faced by Native American veterans, who often return to communities that still face immense challenges, from high rates of poverty to health issues like PTSD. Their service is a reminder of the ongoing struggle for justice, both in the military and at home. The story of the Native American warrior is not just told in history books, it's passed down through generations, through the art of storytelling. Storytelling has always been a crucial part of Native American culture, helping to preserve history, culture, and lessons learned from the past. This chapter examines how Native American writers, artists, and filmmakers are using storytelling to reshape the narrative around their people's history. Through literature, film, and the arts, Native Americans are reclaiming their stories and giving voice to the experiences of their people. Writers like Sherman Alexie and filmmakers like Sterling Harjo are challenging the stereotypes and telling the stories of resilience, strength, and survival. Treaties were meant to protect native lands and rights. But for too long, the U.S. government has broken these promises. The fight for treaty rights continues to this day. For centuries, Native American tribes signed treaties with the U.S. government, promises meant to guarantee land, sovereignty, and resources, but time and again, these agreements were broken. This chapter dives into the ongoing fight for treaty rights, Native tribes' legal battles to ensure that the promises made to their ancestors are honored by the U.S. government. The legal victories in cases like United States versus Kagama and Hickel versus Ledbetter are explored, showing how Native tribes are using the courts to protect their treaty rights. These battles are not just about land, they are about ensuring the survival of a culture that has been under siege for centuries. Food is not just sustenance, it's identity. For centuries, Native Americans were denied access to their ancestral foods. But now, a new movement is bringing those foods back. The fight for food sovereignty is at the heart of the Native American struggle for independence. For generations, Native Americans were forced to rely on government rations, which stripped them of their traditional diets. But now, tribes across the nation are revitalizing their agricultural practices, reclaiming their sacred foods, and rebuilding food systems rooted in their culture. This chapter focuses on initiatives like the Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance, which works to reconnect tribes with their traditional farming practices. It also highlights the role of foods like corn, beans, squash, and buffalo in the spiritual and cultural life of Native communities, and the growing movement to return to these ancient practices. Generational trauma, passed down through decades of violence and forced assimilation, has left deep scars. But Native American communities are finding ways to heal and move forward. The impacts of historical trauma, including forced assimilation, the loss of land, and systemic violence, have left lasting effects on Native American communities. From high suicide rates to substance abuse, the effects of these traumas continue to manifest in health disparities. But there is a growing movement focused on healing. This chapter explores the rise of Native American health initiatives, from mental health counseling rooted in traditional healing practices to community programs focused on suicide prevention, addiction recovery, and healthcare access. Native communities are reclaiming their health, drawing from their cultural practices to heal the wounds of the past. Education isn't just about reading and writing, it's about learning who you are, where you come from, and where you're going. Education has always been a powerful tool in Native American resistance. For years, Native children were sent to boarding schools where they were stripped of their language, culture, and identity. Today, Native American communities are reclaiming education, building schools that teach not only Western knowledge, but also Native languages, traditions, and values. This chapter explores the role of tribal colleges and culturally relevant curriculum in empowering Native youth. The growth of these institutions, such as Dine College and the Institute of American Indian Arts, marks a victory in Native Americans' ongoing battle to control their own education and ensure that future generations know their history, their culture, and their power. In a world that tried to erase them, Native Americans are now redefining their identities, embracing the old while forging new paths for the future. Native American identity is not just a label, it's a legacy, a bond to land, culture, and history. This chapter focuses on how Native Americans today are reclaiming and reasserting their identity in the face of modern challenges. Leaders like Deb Haaland, the first Native American Secretary of the Interior, and Sharice Davids, the first openly gay Native American woman elected to Congress, are paving the way for a new generation of Native American leadership. From young activists working for environmental justice to artists redefining what it means to be Native in a globalized world, this chapter explores how the younger generation is creating a vibrant, forward-looking Native identity. In a world that sought to dismantle Native American governance, tribes are now reclaiming their traditional systems of leadership and decision-making. Many Native American tribes were forced into Western-style governance under U.S. rule, undermining their traditional systems of leadership. But today, there's a resurgence of interest in tribal governance, with more tribes returning to their traditional councils, where decision-making is rooted in communal consensus and spiritual guidance. This chapter looks at how Native American tribes are reviving their traditional forms of governance, ensuring that leaders are not only elected for their political acumen, but for their ability to lead with wisdom, integrity, and respect for the land and the people. For too long, Native American voices were marginalized. Now they're rising up, telling their own stories, and reshaping the narrative. Media representation has always been a battleground for Native Americans. Hollywood and mainstream media have often portrayed Native people through distorted lenses, if at all. But now, Native American filmmakers, writers, and journalists are taking control of their narrative. This chapter explores the work of Native American filmmakers like Sterling Harjo, who created the groundbreaking TV series Reservation Dogs, and director Chris Eyre, whose film Smoke Signals brought Native stories to the big screen. The rise of Native American media is an act of resistance, reclaiming the power to tell stories that reflect the true experiences, joys, and struggles of Native peoples. The fight for land is not just about property, it's about justice. It's about the generations of loss, the broken treaties, and the stolen heritage. Land reparations remain a central issue for Native American tribes. Despite the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868 and other agreements, U.S. governments repeatedly violated these treaties. This chapter explores the ongoing efforts to secure land reparations with a focus on land trust movements, compensation lawsuits, and land restoration initiatives. Through litigation and direct action, Native tribes are fighting to regain what was taken from them, demanding justice not just in dollars, but in the return of their ancestral lands. The warrior spirit cannot be defeated. It lives on in every Native American who stands up for their rights, their people, and their culture. In this chapter, we reflect on how the warrior spirit has been passed down through generations of Native Americans. From the early warriors who fought for survival to today's activists who fight for justice, the spirit of resistance remains alive. Native American pride is not just about remembering the past. It's about building a future based on the strength of their ancestors and the wisdom of their elders. For Native Americans, Spirituality is not just a belief, it's a way of life. And in the face of modernity, their spiritual traditions are being reborn. This chapter explores the revitalization of Native American spirituality, focusing on how tribes are reclaiming their sacred ceremonies, healing practices, and connection to the earth. From the sweat lodge ceremonies to sacred dances, Native Americans are ensuring that their spiritual traditions remain strong, passing them down to younger generations as a vital part of their identity. The fight is far from over. As the new generation of Native American leaders rise, the legacy of their ancestors continues to shape their journey toward justice. In the final chapter, we look ahead to the future of Native American communities. With increasing political power, tribal sovereignty, and the fight for environmental justice, Native Americans are not just surviving, they're thriving. This chapter celebrates the ongoing achievements of Native American tribes and the hope that their journey toward justice and equality will continue for generations to come. Art is resistance. It's a way to tell the stories that history has tried to erase. Native American artists are now leading the charge to reclaim their narratives and their culture. From painter John Quick-to-See Smith to filmmaker Sterling Harjo, Native American artists are redefining what it means to be indigenous in the modern world. This chapter explores how art has become a tool for cultural revival, resistance, and empowerment. Through visual arts, storytelling, and performance, Native American artists are reclaiming their histories and identities, bringing indigenous voices to the forefront of the global art world. By using their art to challenge stereotypes and engage with both traditional and contemporary issues, these artists are ensuring that their cultures, which once faced attempts to be erased, are now celebrated in all their complexity. Water is the lifeblood of the earth. For Native Americans, it is sacred. And when a pipeline threatened their sacred lands, the battle for water became a fight for survival. The Standing Rock protests were not just about the Dakota Access Pipeline, they were about Native American environmental sovereignty. This chapter dives deep into the story of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and their fierce resistance against the pipeline, which threatened both their water source and their sacred land. The protest became a global movement, with thousands of allies standing together in solidarity. The message was clear. Protecting the earth and its water was not just an environmental issue, it was a fight for the survival of Native American people and culture. The water protectors at Standing Rock became symbols of hope, resilience, and collective action. The new warriors aren't always wielding bows and arrows, they're wielding knowledge, technology, and social media. The next generation of Native Americans is leading the fight for justice. This chapter highlights the growing influence of Native American youth in activism and politics. From climate justice activists to student leaders, Native American youth are making their voices heard in unprecedented ways. The chapter will focus on the youth-led movements for environmental protection, cultural preservation, and Native American rights, as well as the role of social media in organizing and mobilizing young Native voices. With figures like Autumn Peltier, a young water protector, and Sikangu Lakota activist Gina Blackwolf, the spirit of resistance is alive and well in the next generation. These youth are taking up the mantle left by their ancestors, fighting for a better future for Native peoples. Victory doesn't always come with a weapon. It can come with a legal brief, a signed document, or a ruling in the courtroom. Native American nations are now winning critical legal battles. While many battles have been fought on the ground, others have taken place in the courts. This chapter covers some of the significant legal victories Native American tribes have won, such as the landmark case United States versus Kagama and Hickel versus Ledbetter. These cases represent the evolving battle for sovereignty and treaty rights as tribes seek to regain control over their lands, resources, and cultural heritage. With the help of legal scholars, activists, and advocates, Native American tribes are carving out new spaces of power and self-determination through the legal system, often taking on powerful institutions that have long sought to undermine their sovereignty. Music is more than entertainment. It's a rallying cry. Native American musicians are using their voices to share stories of survival, resistance, and hope. Music has long been a vehicle for Native American expression, and today, Native musicians are continuing to use their craft as a form of resistance. From Keith Secola to A Tribe Called Red, Native American music blends traditional sounds with contemporary rhythms to tell stories of struggle, survival, and cultural pride. This chapter explores how Native American musicians are not just preserving their culture, but are shaping the broader musical landscape. Through hip-hop, rock, and traditional music, Native artists are influencing the global music scene while staying true to their roots and their message of resistance. Self-determination means more than just political sovereignty. It means economic independence. Native American tribes are building strong businesses to ensure their future. While many Native American tribes were historically dependent on the U.S. government, the tides are changing. In this chapter, we explore the rise of tribal businesses, from casinos to green energy initiatives. Tribes like the Pequot tribe and the Navajo Nation are now creating their own economic engines, generating revenue and providing jobs for their communities. This chapter highlights how Native American tribes are creating their own economic futures, investing in businesses, infrastructure, and sustainability projects. By building strong economies, they are able to fund education, healthcare, and cultural programs that ensure the survival of their people and traditions. The fight for justice isn't just in the streets, it's in the halls of power. Native Americans are now rising to positions of political influence. As the political landscape changes, more and more Native Americans are entering the world of politics and governance. From Deb Haaland and Sharice Davids breaking barriers in Congress to Cheryl A. Mitchell, the first Native American judge appointed to the Arizona Court of Appeals, this chapter explores how Native Americans are making their voices heard in the political process. Native Americans are no longer sidelined in political conversations. They are leading the charge for policy reform, environmental justice, and cultural preservation. Their growing political power is a testament to their resilience and determination to shape their future. To be a warrior is to be connected to the land, the spirits, and the ancestors. Native American spirituality is a vital part of the fight for justice and cultural survival. For many Native Americans, spirituality is not a separate aspect of life. It is life itself. This chapter delves into the deep spiritual traditions that have sustained Native communities for thousands of years. From the sweat lodge ceremonies to vision quests, spirituality is at the heart of the Native American experience. This chapter also explores how Native American spirituality is being reconnected with modern struggles. Many tribes are using their sacred practices as a form of resistance, fighting to protect sacred lands, water, and ways of life. Native American spirituality is not just about worship, it's about honoring the earth and ensuring future generations can live in harmony with the world around them. History is written by those who survive, and now Native Americans are telling their own stories, shaping their own narratives. This chapter focuses on Native American scholars, writers, and educators who are reclaiming history and rewriting the narrative of Native America. Leaders like N. Scott Momaday, Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, and Josephine Bruchac are pivotal in reclaiming and documenting Native American history. Their work is not just about education, it's about ensuring that future generations understand the truth of their people's history. Through Native American history programs and educational outreach, they are ensuring that Native American stories are taught in schools and shared around the world. The fight for justice isn't just a battle for survival, it's a fight to thrive. The future of Native America is filled with hope, power, and resilience. As we conclude our journey through the rich history of Native American warriors and activists, we look forward to the future. The story is far from over. Native American communities are more vibrant than ever, continuing to push for sovereignty, cultural preservation, and social justice. From young leaders taking the reins to tribal nations asserting their rights, the future of Native America is one of resilience and strength. The warrior spirit, though tested, remains alive in every Native American who fights for their people's dignity, history, and survival. Their journey continues, and their voices will never be silenced. If you found inspiration in these stories, please like, comment, and share this video to keep their legacies alive. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share your reflections in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more powerful stories from history. Your support helps keep these important narratives alive.